Hello, this is Jacob here again today on another episode of Small Business Chat. We have a special guest star today. Rickson Hill has joined us today. Hey, Rickson, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good, doing pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, no problem. And also, as always, Mr. Matt has joined us today. Matt Swires, how are you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How you doing?
Doing amazing as well. Rickson Hill again is joining us today to talk about because he is a college athlete, Mr. Soccer player over here. Rickson, talk us through basically what you do over there playing soccer, how good you are. Of course, you're the best, I would assume.
How good you are.
But
I mean, I'm
Rickson,
decent. I'm decent. But yeah, I basically started my college career in 2019 in the US. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago. It's a small Caribbean island. Very beautiful. I recommend everybody go there and just live. But yeah, so I came over in 2019. I had aspirations of playing professional, but with your parents always being behind you with education, decided to take the school route as well, and I believe the college route was the better option. So I first went to a small junior college in Iowa, then COVID-19 hit, so I transferred to another one in New Jersey. Then I went to a 4-year college in North Carolina, and now I'm doing my MBA in Oklahoma.
Hey, yeah, first of all, on behalf of the United States, I apologize you had to go to New Jersey. But sorry, it's just so easy. But wow, actually, I mean, to be candid with you, it's a heck of a journey, man. So it's
Yeah.
like playing soccer, like paid a lot of the bills on the way.
Definitely not. It's more expenses than anything if you believe. But
Really?
the experience is it's a very good experience because you get to meet so many internationals, so many people from different cultures, different backgrounds. Um, I'd say that's like the major benefit, like meeting all these people that you probably would never meet in your lifetime from all these countries that you probably never heard of or you only saw on TV. So it's a amazing experience.
Have you ever like met like or played against anyone that like we would know their names of, whether it be in college or elsewhere? Any,
Met
any,
anyone right now?
yeah,
In the US,
yeah,
probably not.
yeah.
There is this one player from Trinidad and Tobago. His name is Tyrese Spicer. He's playing in the MLS right now for Toronto FC. So
Okay.
Spicer, when I send you this link, good luck in your season, bro. And I saw you got selected for the national team, so
Wow.
big up on that journey as well. It's about time. I know you're gonna do well, but yeah, it's a great thing to see like how his college career progressed into the professional game as well.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, again, just so you know, so the listeners out there, all three of them, which would be us and I guess our moms, but just say back in the day when we had leather football helmets, I actually, played a little bit in the college as well. And such. So we got two former NCAA athletes here, and the biggest guy of all of us, which would be our, beloved host Jacob. So Jacob, like, what exactly topics we want to go through today? Because I know we got a bunch of stuff to sort of hit with us, with us former NCAA athletes. Sorry, Rickson, you're
yeah,
now
we have
lumped
we have
with
a
a
few things.
53-year-old.
Yeah, we have a few things to go over with Rickson. Just also some also not necessarily old news, but kind of new news as well. But in regards to NCAA football games coming back again, Matt, you have a lot of information and knowledge about that, so we'll talk about that today as well. But also just want to ask you a couple of questions, Rickson, since obviously me and Matt are kind of wanting to understand a little bit more of what your involvement in soccer is. How did you like? I know you talked a little bit about your early life with soccer and everything, but what are like some of your biggest influences? Growing up, both on and off the field for soccer. Who started it all?
Um, I guess just being around the game. I mean, back home, it's always like a fun thing to do. It's kind of like how you meet people, how you bond with everybody, and it's our culture. Like this is like one of our top three sports. I would say like it's cricket. then football, or we call it football, but it's soccer up here, and then it's track and field, and then everything else is kind of like, yeah. So sorry to the other people that are doing different sports, but yeah. So it's you just play it for fun, and then if you're someone like me, I kind of like wanted to do more with it. I decided to play for like my high school and club teams and all that stuff, and then I actually had a conversation with a coach, Dexter Gill, who kind of like pushed the idea of studying abroad and maybe trying to like play professionally while I'm still young, while I still had time. I didn't have any responsibilities, and I felt like it was a good time to take a risk. So I would say like he definitely had that idea or planted that seed in my head in a sense. But yeah, it was just mainly because I enjoyed the game and I wanted to like do it as a career, as a profession. So yeah.
Wow.
Gotcha. That's awesome that you started out like that. And like what is maybe some challenges or maybe some things you went through when you first started? Was it very easy? Did you have to train? What did you come natural to you soccer, or did you have to really train very hard to become very good at it?
That is a good question. And I would say it was not easy. For me, I started like I would say a late age because I started playing at 13. Usually players who've been in the game for a while, they play at like 10, 8, 9. They're already like in academies. I was kind of like a raw player in a sense. I didn't have any like that beginning or early development. So I usually just played outside. I played in like basketball courts on like open fields on a Sunday just for like fun. And then um, you know, I realized like okay, I'm decent. I can like grow in this area just a little. So I decided to like, you know what, it's fun. Why not just look for a team or something? Because it's so easy to join a team because there are a bunch of teams everywhere. So I think I joined my first team like it was around my area and the coach liked me. But I actually didn't get much minutes. I was kind of like still kind of like just this raw player because imagine you're just used to playing like small sided games. Now you're on a big field and it's like it's different IQ, it's different positioning, and you have to know when to run, where to run. You can't just like pick up the ball and want to dribble everybody. So for me, it took some time to like develop just the understanding. I had like, okay, I can pass, I can shoot, I can do a few skills here and there, but just like the understanding of the game at that age, I had to develop. And well, after a while, as I like grew more into the sport, started to learn more about the sport, started to watch the sport more. Um, I started to like figure out ways to increase my game. Fitness is a major part of soccer. Everybody will tell you this. We do a lot of running, especially on the position that you play. So I took the fitness kind of like seriously, but also like, okay, this is gonna make me enjoy the game more if I'm fit. So yeah, the training is not easy. You gotta wake up early, you gotta stay late. Sometimes I used to do like 2 a days, or I would practice like with different teams back to back. Because I just loved it. It didn't matter to me. So yeah.
Gotcha. How much can you bench press, Rickson?
You're gonna challenge him?
Yeah. How much can I bench press? What is that? Is that a 45 and a 25 plate? What is that?
Wow, it's 185.
It's
Yeah,
185?
yeah,
Is
I
that?
remember that from
Yeah.
back in the day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of like my range.
yeah. What do you got, Jacob, since you're asking?
My best one rep was I could still probably do it like 245, 250. I used to be a big
Show
bench back
off.
in the
Just
day.
one rep. Just one. Was one rep really count? I
Yeah.
don't
I
know.
could do maybe two or three of those two at 250. I could.
Oh, okay.
Well, look at you. Yeah, look at you.
Matt, how much
I-
can you bench
Like today,
today?
like
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I'm lucky. Like a Popeye's chicken sandwich, you know. But I'm like, like back in the day, it was a little bit more. It was like 2 to 3 Popeyes chicken sandwiches. But I was a defensive back, so I mean, we didn't, we
Are
just had
these
to,
things
run
heavy
fast and look
that I don't
pretty.
know about? The Popeyes chicken?
No, yeah, they're very heavy biscuits.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah, back in the day, I probably went, I don't think I ever eclipsed 400. I think it was like 375, 380.
Oh,
Oh wow,
But
geez.
back in the day, but yeah, you don't know that about the old guy, right? But yeah, again,
Well, that used to be a
weights were different
receiver
back
back
then.
in the day, weren't
Inflation.
you?
Yeah, I was a defensive back, so I
A
was one of the little
defensive back.
guys. But you see me walk around the office, you
How
know,
many what was the most interceptions you ever had in one game?
one.
One.
Ask me how many interceptions I had in my career.
How many
he's
interceptions have
gonna
you had in
say
your career?
one.
One.
Oh
One.
my days.
It was glorious, though. I really enjoyed it. It's
Did you score a
fantastic.
touchdown with it? That's all that matters.
No.
No.
You know
But
what
thank you
used to
for
what
relegating my one interception to a non-successful. I will say this: I took it back about 75 yards, and I got probably one of the most embarrassing things that can happen to a defensive back. I took it back about 75 yards. I think I got tackled at like the 7-yard line.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, it
So
gets worse
close, but so
by
far
an
away.
offensive lineman.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
Matt,
it's not good memories. But thank you for that painful memory. But if you need like more salt to pour in my wound, just let me know. I can
uh,
bring you some in the office.
yeah, there's some in the kitchen, I think.
Yeah, okay, I'll be right there.
Awesome, Matt. Well, do you have any questions for Rickson specifically about his soccer
Well,
career?
and one of these things, I think this is fascinating because I think it'll lead into sort of one of the things that we're sort of, talking about today, like
uh,
between the NIL and branding and college athletes and all that sort of stuff. You talk about the dedication that it takes to become that athlete. Like how are you able to like? Did you ever have troubles like sort of balancing like school versus athletics once you got to college? Because you just sort of rattled off like I mean, you're very educated and you're on your way to getting your MBA, which is fantastic. But like, I
thank
mean,
you.
it's got to be hard to be an athlete and balance books. Can you just sort of comment on like, the time commitment that goes between juggling both of those?
Yeah, because I think it's all just time management, I feel like, because you have early mornings. It's about time management and energy because a lot of athletes they have like a schedule or a strict regime depending on the type of school environment or culture you're around. Because not
Yeah.
everybody could be D1. Some people have to take the JUCO route or the NAIA or Division 2 where I played. And
Yeah.
it's different for each program. So I would say like some of the coaches, depending on how serious they take the program, would push academics. Because when I first came to my Division 2 in North Carolina, it was Lees McRae College. The coach was basically doing he was starting fresh. He wanted to bring in new athletes, kind of like bring back the culture of good soccer in Banner Elk, which was a small town we were around. But he also wanted us to make sure we are doing good in the classroom because that was a weak area. A lot of players just showed up for games and they didn't take classwork seriously. So he wanted to increase our GPA. So we had study hall and we had to like stay there for like an hour and put our phones away and all that type of stuff. So it's definitely a time management thing. Obviously, 1 week of study hall is not gonna increase your grades, but
Yeah.
being on time with like your assignments, teachers are always like a good resource. And I also think like you just have to want it for yourself to understand like okay, you're a student first and then an athlete second. That's what they always like preach to you. That's what they always preach to us. A lot of people I feel like they forget that because you show up for game day or you see us in practice, it's a lot of hours. It's a lot of early mornings, especially when it's cold. Hate the cold. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's okay. I have a 5 a.m., so maybe I should like do all the assignments I have due tonight. And then tomorrow after practice, I could probably like sleep in a little bit and then head to class. And it's not something to think about during the day. It's already done. Or
Yeah.
some people like myself, I used to like do my homework in class. I mean, don't tell teachers. I used to pay attention, but yeah, I used to like try to get things out the way. So it's more free time. I could do more hours in practice. That's that kind of thing. So it's a time management thing.
Yeah, and I think for any college athlete, it is. I mean, I know that back in the 1980s and 1990s when I was there, I remember I was actually more productive and actually better when I was actually in season because you just
Hmm.
had to be so laser focused
Yeah.
on because you had no spare time whatsoever. And sort of wrapping into sort of, today, the college athlete, I think it's getting more. I mean, again, I'm not on campus. I'm 53. My kids are in college now.
Hmm.
But, I think that, the challenges of like now we got NIL and, now just in the last couple of days, they've announced that universities can pay athletes directly. And my concern, for the athletes are, and we talked about it before the podcast, it's like 99% of athletes aren't going pro in the sport in which they play. And actually, it's probably even higher than that, and such. But it's just sort of like, okay, but now the universities, like, it's one thing when you had NIL money starting to come in there. And I think that lessen the university's concern that the athletes actually be the college side, the college athletes, because it's
Hmm.
like, well, now hey, you're getting paid for this, so you're pretty much pro. We're not paying you, but such. But now the universities are going to start paying these kids. I think that we definitely have to have some sort of organization. The NCAA needs to rewrite itself and sort of reinvent itself and actually start being on the, actually being advocates for the actual athletes and basically be like, no, 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 they're going to get their education because I'm scared for like, again, all these kids, every single kid that goes D1 thinks they're going pro in that sport. And it's
Yep.
an
Yep.
absolute, you know what
Yep.
I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about, right, Rickson? Like
Hmm.
you could have like, you'd be playing at a program that hasn't made the playoffs or hasn't, made a bowl game if you're in football in 4 years. But if you're starting for them, and I don't want to mention anyone because I don't want to slander them, like those kids all think they're going pro.
Hmm.
And they may and like half these kids don't go to class, like you were just talking about. And like I think
They
this is
honestly don't.
yeah,
They honestly don't.
yeah. And just like well, but it's such a waste because I don't know, you're from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm from a little place called Riviera Beach, Florida. And a lot of those kids use scholarships to get out of,
Right.
to get out of it. They don't come from privilege like so many people do in this country.
It's a different environment.
Yeah, and you get out, and then now the answer is going to be is okay. So now the university is going to just now they're going to look at these kids as basically just employees, but those kids got to fight to get their education because, like I said, 99% they are not, and I repeat, not sorry, going to go pro. And so so you're doing the right thing. You figured it out, and I think that's probably really strong parenting on your parents' fault, on your parents' part. So congratulations, you must have good parents. Um, but I mean, you know what I mean, and such. So I don't know what percentage do you think of the guys that you play with, throughout the years, do you think just sort of blew off class and just weren't worried about getting their education?
Probably I would say like 30%. It was a small number because our coach like pushed it really
Yeah,
heavy. And it used to be like the talented guys too. I mean,
yeah,
and I would say like for internationals, because well, soccer, I would say it's different from the the NFL or
yeah,
American football because usually it's more home-based players, it's more domestic players that you guys have on a roster, and your rosters are huge.
yeah.
For us, the more internationals you have, it's kind of like you adding something to the game. You adding a different playing style. It's our coach, he had like a couple more European players, a couple African players as well. He had like very few there I know of teams where there's very few Americans on the team, honestly. So it
Yeah.
depends on what that coach kind of like sees. But he always like when it's a pinpoint the type of person he's recruiting into the program, what type of
Oh yeah.
culture he wants to create. He didn't want to create something toxic or where everybody wasn't on the same page or people wanted to party. He wanted individuals that were serious, wanted to like study first, become students, be academically inclined, and then focus on the field. But it is difficult because you mentioned the NIL deal and basically being like an employee. Because when you think of it, you actually are an employee. Like
Oh
you
yeah.
you wake up like it's not even like a 9 to 5. It's sometimes it's like 7 to 7.
Oh yeah.
Because
Oh yeah.
you got study hall like at 7 p.m. or you might have a game after a 7 a.m. class. You go to class and you leave. You come back probably like the day after going like an away game or something. So you know how it is.
Yeah.
So the time is crazy. It's hard to like I knew like some players they struggled catching up with sleep. They struggled juggling their grades because when you're going on games, and I think it's more pressure on the players who do have that drive to want to be professional or do want that drive to like continuously play because you're here for your passion and you want to play, but at the same time you got to keep up with your grades. The coach isn't gonna keep playing you if you're doing bad in class, and you're going on these games. Sometimes it's away games or it's games 3 times a week, and you're not there in class like everyone else, like the regular students. So you miss out on material. You miss out on. So if there's a teacher that's not willing to like go that extra mile for you, it's very easy to get an F. And he told us this. He's like, an
Yeah.
F, an F is guaranteed. You have to work
Hey,
for
that's good. You got a
an
guaranteed grade.
A.
That's awesome.
He's like a zero is guaranteed. You have to work to get an A.
Yeah.
He was right. If you don't show up to these classes without giving like a ample amount of like reason to say, okay, I'm gonna miss this class because I have a game, because teachers understand most athletes, they're not gonna make it to every class, but just that communication for them to at least know, okay, you're not gonna be here or give me a schedule to work with. They work with you. But if you're just not showing up, they gonna think like, yeah, this guy he doesn't care. So
You're
it's
not
a tough
showing up.
thing. Yeah.
Or in my generation, so with the athletes, we basically had to go to all like morning, like really early morning classes because all afternoon, like the regular
Hmm.
stiffs, you don't get a chance to go to those afternoon classes, right? Because you're out at practice or whatnot. And so,
Yeah.
and you mentioned 7 to 7. Yeah, it's like 7 to 7, and then you get to study, right? But and so I can always remember very prominently, like we were in class one morning, and all of a sudden, you just hear like ting, 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 boom, 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 boom. And, and we're like, what the heck is that noise? And literally the professor, this back in the day, you could do this, was whipping chalk at one of our offensive linemen because he had fallen asleep so hard in the class, he
Yep.
was snoring. And the big old
Uh,
boy. And like the professor's like, I don't care if you sleep through my class, but don't snore. And so he was just whipping chalk at the dude across the room. But again, today, sorry, but today I don't know I don't want to say anything that could be taken the wrong way. But anyways, today people are like, well, I'm calling mom and dad and I'm suing you and we're gonna have a protest over this.
yeah. Hmm.
Athletes don't do that. We're just like, whatever, dude. Yeah, you're 6'4", 320 pounds. You got hit by a couple pieces of chalk. Get over it. Um, just it's fascinating because it just is I think the complexities of what the modern athlete has to deal with. Like in my day, right, we actually had to worry more about eligibility and getting out to the field and scheduling classes and evidently staying awake. In your day, it basically has become like I think a little bit more. I think actually staying eligible is a little bit easier because there's a lot more people that are academic advisors and all that sort of stuff that are out there
Yeah.
and coaches that are, hey, you can't play if you're not eligible. You get that guaranteed F, right?
Hmm.
Um, but then now add in this money that's coming in for you guys. Again, it's sort of like, what do you do? And then sort of twisting this, to like sort of like, okay, should you actually start for you first of all, you got to protect yourself to make sure you get an education. Because again, we've talked about 99%, but then the next level of this, and sort of like the theme of what our podcast is, and I'll throw it back to Jacob here, but you still awake, Jacob?
I'm still
But
here, just
yeah, he's still here. He's just like, just
He's like, yeah, yeah,
backing
yeah.
away. Hey, remember Rickson? Remember when it was like him? But anyways, but it's like, talking about this branding in college, because now there's all this money in college. Colleges have now become just farm leagues for officially the pro leagues now with this last shoe dropping, right? With like, with the furniture. So we got to protect our athletes, but the athletes got to start thinking about protecting themselves because that 1%, like how's that, how's this going to be affected? Right? Where do you want us to take this next, Jacob? What do you think? We'll throw it back to you here for a second after, and then Ricks and I are going to get back and we're going to remunerate for a while in our lives as athletes. What do you got, Jacob?
Well, thanks for throwing it back over to me, Matt. Well, I had something to talk to you about to you, Matt, which is the NCAA football thing I wanted to ask you about. I know my brief knowledge was back when I was a kid, back in the early 2000s. I used to love to play all those NCAA football games all the time. It was fun because in those games also, Matt, did you ever play any football games or Madden games back in the day, Matt, at all?
Yeah, I loved them. Like back, I can't remember when they stopped. But yeah, I mean, and of course, I used to my beloved Florida Gators. I'd be playing like, there's the legacy, like the I don't we never had. Did we have Tim Tebow? I don't think so. We had
Yeah,
Danny Warhol for the
there
Florida
was Tim
Gators.
Tebow back. I think it was like 2012 or 13.
Is that when they stopped it? So it would have had Tim Tebow. He would have been unstoppable in college, despite what all the boo birds. Yeah, win a part of 2 national championship rings, then call me. Anyways,
Yeah.
it's sort of like saying, "Yo, Michael Jordan is not the best basketball." Yeah, whatever. Win 6 rings and then call me. Anyways, but back to you. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. And then, so my thing was I absolutely love those games, and even in the game itself it was kind of fun. You could actually like you'd have to go through college courses and be able to keep up with your grades, and they actually asked you pretty hard questions at the time for me when I was a kid, of like college questions, that you'd have to answer, some involving math and history and a whole bunch of other stuff. And you'd actually have to pass the classes inside the game to be able to play on the field, which was pretty cool, like implementation into the game. But then they stopped it all of a sudden, and pretty much the only thing that is football related and has been football related in many years. I can't even remember the last other game that was other football related other than the NCAA football games, because Madden, or EA in this case, has pretty much just made it so that they're the only ones who can sell and make a football game, which is unfortunate, because that doesn't give any competition out there. And if there's no competition, they could just keep pumping out the same exact game every single year and not really necessarily care if it's good or not. That's a big complaint of a lot of people who have been waiting for a good Madden game again. A good Madden game hasn't been around since the 2000s, like the early 2000s,
Wow.
back when like Michael Vick was playing and everything. But yeah, so with NCAA though, I'm looking at it exactly right here. It looks like, again, that the reason why the NCAA football games stopped was because of the video games not directly using players' names, but just their numbers and skill sets and appearances without compensating them. So that was the huge issue. And then also Ed
Oh yeah.
O'Bannon was his name, the college basketball player that looked into it as well and sued, and then also made pretty much it so that we can't have a football game ever since then. So, Matt, and I think you have some extra knowledge in that matter as well, right?
Oh yeah, and so I mean, so for years, it's one of those things. Like I mean, and now I do remember this because Tebow I think was caught up in this for a while, and I mean that's respectfully because I've never met Tim, but I mean he did great things for the University of Florida. He's continued to be probably our strongest supporter. Just he's in general just a great guy, from everything I know about him, despite being maligned because he was just such a winner. Deal with it, but. But I think what it was is, the story goes that, there's a guy named Ed O'Bannon who is a fantastic basketball player, if I recall correctly, out of UCLA. And obviously, one of the most storied programs in college basketball with the late, great, Coach Wooden, and such. And, I think one year, a day, like Ed was playing like, NCAA basketball on his, EA Sports, and you can play a legacy division, and he's like, oh cool, I can play as myself or something like that. And as he's playing himself, he's like, wait a minute, why am I getting some cash for this? It's like, why is everyone else getting cash? And for anyone who's been on this debate with the NCAA and the eligibility rules for the last like 10 or 12 years, I used to be like, no, the athletes, they get basically, free education. Why should they get anything more? And as more and more college coaches like, oh, we should never compensate, athletes, for what they play, as they're basically like sitting there and having their press conferences from their $14 million lake home, you're like, well, the athletes shouldn't get compensated. You're just like, after a while, you're just like, huh? So Ed basically gets this, but see, Ed, I think was a successful businessman at the time. I think he spent some time in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken. And was a very good player there as well. But, and he's like, well, I should get paid. So I think Ed sues him. And ultimately, I think it goes through some appeals and all that sort of stuff. But the long and short of it is he wins. And I think EA Sports has to pay him and some other people like name, image, likeness money because trademark law 101, in essence, intellectual property law 101, it doesn't matter if it's Rickson Hill, Matt Swires, Jacob Porter, or, obviously more, famous people, Michael Jordan, obviously, especially, etc. You have an exclusive right to your name, image, and likeness. And if someone's going to use it, and this is a tremendous thing, that's going on in Hollywood right now with all the AI technology, and, can we just use deep fakes and such? And we talked about that in an earlier episode. You got to pay someone. Well, Ed won the case. And so EA Sports, under NCAA rules, couldn't pay athletes back in the day what's now changed. So EA Sports was sort of put in this rock and a hard place. They're like, well, man, this is a profitable game for us. Like if you're a pro athlete, they do Madden, they can compensate those guys. So if I want to play as, like you said, Michael Vick gets a check because it's his name, image, likeness. Even if it's on a video game, he gets a check. Good for Mike Vick, one of the most dynamic players ever in the history of college football and in the NFL. But because it's basically the O'Bannon rule, the NCAA got sort of put into a position where they're just like, okay, well, we can't. An athlete can't get compensated, a current athlete, to remain eligible in the NCAA. You can't get compensated. So in other words, they just, they want to be able to come out with, like a video game that has this year's hot players, but they couldn't. Now, they could always do that with a legacy. And that's why I was always like, well, what the heck's going on? But I think what their challenge was is that, like, they could have come out in 2020 with college football. And then it'd be like, well, could I play as Tim Tebow if they compensated Tim? Yes, because he played back 2006, 2007, 2008, that time frame. Because he was a former athlete, because you could pay him. But, well, how are you going to deal with it? Are you going to just have, nameless jersey backs in the current teams? And then I think it was just so awkward. They're just like, it's just not worth it. And then, well, what happens if we put on a famous number 50 or 15 for the Florida Gators, who's the quarterback who can just run over everybody and can, throw a ball? Where does it stop? So anyways, it really started with Ed O'Bannon, and it's really not until now that we have the NIL comes out 2 years ago, and California legislature says, listen, you can't ban eligibility on players if they get paid by NIL. And that basically accommodates for the Ed O'Bannon rule. So now all these kids getting paid, right? What do you think, Jacob? Should they get paid?
I think so. I mean, I was just thinking about it myself. Obviously I've never been an athlete before, but if I was, and I was, and I saw myself somewhere where obviously EA is making a whole bunch of money off of their own game, and I have really strong opinion about EA in a negative way. But yeah, if I saw my likeness somewhere and I'm not, EA makes so much money off of it and I'm not getting a single dime from it, that's kind of not fair. Where it's just like it's either pay me the money for my likeness, since you're obviously making money from this game, or take me out of the game.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know. Rickson, out of curiosity, have you made any money off of this?
I have not yet to receive a check.
I got a sandwich.
Is there an NCAA soccer game? I didn't even look that up yet.
I don't
Yeah.
think so. No, I don't think so. I don't think it's that big yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna get there though.
It will. Like, soccer's coming up. Like, I mean, because it's a great, great sport. We've just been so accustomed to like NBA and football in this country for so long, but soccer will get there. But now, and it's going to be interesting because, like, so just in the last week, they announced this big settlement with, so now we're not even talking about, so NIL threw everything up. Then the transfer portal throws everything into, so you have NIL and transfer portal. So basically you have complete player free agency now, like on a year-to-year basis. Whoever can pay them the most under an NIL deal can get the hot players and all that sort of stuff. And then now you add into the mix this craziness the university is paying. Can actually pay players directly. I think there's some sort of settlement with the NCAA. I still think there's some closed door stuff that's going on because they kept this relatively quiet. And so I'm thinking they've come out and they're going to promulgate new rules. They're going to talk about making sure the kids go to class and how much you can pay and all that sort of stuff. The one thing that I've been fascinated by, and everyone's heard this before, and then we'll get into the name, image, and likeness and what I think players should be doing today. The one thing that I've been fascinated for is evidently the NCAA has sat down and hammered this agreement out with the Power 5 conferences. Once again, I still don't think they're getting the point. Why aren't the players in the room? They're the ones that are providing the labor. And so whatever agreement that they may or may not agree to, the players haven't agreed to it. And now that they're going to be paying them, directly, the players have a right to unionize. They basically just admitted these kids are or excuse me, our employees.
Employees. Yep.
You know, and so that's great that you can hammer out the agreements between the governing body, the NCAA, which largely has no power apart from the Big Ten and the SEC. They can just sort of tell them what to do. They're going to become a puppet for them. Um, but I mean, once again, they're forgetting about the players. I think what they're doing to you guys, Rickson, likely is they're trying to quickly come out and say, "Hey, look, guys, money, money, jump for the money," before anyone unionizes and realizes, well, why don't we just unionize and then we're going to dictate to them how much money we get on a, we're going to negotiate as opposed to you just telling us what you're willing to pay us. That ain't happening. That train left the station, baby. You admitted that we're employees now by paying us. So whoever unionizes the play, I'm sure IMG is working on it right now or something like that, but they're going to make a lot of money. But I just think that now more than ever, then we got to really talk about, well, what should players be doing to basically protect, like we said, like your Tim Tebow, your Michael Vick, Rickson, have you filed a trademark for your name by any chance?
No, I haven't found a trademark for my name. Have
Hey,
you,
we got a
Jacob?
guy that can do that.
No, I'm not an athlete, but Rickson, you're at the perfect company to get some help with that,
Yeah, I
Definitely
would hope so.
the best company.
Yeah,
Best
dude, if you
company.
went to one of our competitors, we don't mention competitors or anything like that, but if you went to one of our competitors, I'd be hurt. I'd be hurt. Yeah, I did that last week with such and such. I'd be like, what, why?
What?
But I don't know. Like, so, I mean, so if you think about like who should actually be like when you're like, think about it. So these kids are now, for the first time, they have complete free agency. They're getting paid. I actually think there's an argument now. You may actually see kids staying in school longer, which is a great thing, so long as they're getting an education. Because I actually think you can get paid more to stay in school. I mean, it's once, especially when you're a major basketball player or a major football player. And sorry,
Mhm.
Rickson, American football. If I have to
American football player.
like, I mean, Caleb Williams, I'm not sure. We could look it up. That dude was probably making, what did he make over the last year? I think he made like maybe 5, 6, 7, maybe even more than that, maybe 10 million a season playing his last year or so at USC because of all the NIL deals. Well, he'd be making even more money. So think about who your top players are returning in college football this year. Pretty much anyone who starts for Alabama, Ohio State, or Georgia.
So what about
Like
the players who like are not the top players?
it's a great question. Like, and how they going to split up the money, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I'll be candid with you. I thought about this dynamic. Can you imagine Rickson being on a team and like, let's just say your star on your team was your goalie. He's like the greatest goalie in NCAA history, right? And like he's rolling like, 2.3 million, but you're a defender and and you're getting paid 20,000 a year. Yeah, yeah, you'd be like, it's you're dealing with very like professional things that you got to deal with. But then when you're like 18 or 19, you're like, why is the dude I'm defending getting two? Then but he get a shot on him, and maybe I didn't defend that well. You're like, but I'm like, well, you're the one getting 2 million. You better stop that shot. I ain't gonna throw myself. I'm only getting 20,000. Why am I gonna throw my face in front of that ball? You know?
And it's kids too, like it's college. So a lot of these kids are just coming out of high school and then you train
Yeah.
all this money at them. Like these are scenarios you see on like MLS teams with Messi. Like
Hmm.
Inter Miami, this is probably the scenario with like that huge wage gap. But
Oh
like
yeah.
having that in like a college setting, like even with scholarships. The first thing our coach said, nobody discuss scholarships. Keep that to yourself. Keep that information to yourself.
And
He
how long
doesn't
did that
want,
happen?
and that happened for like what, like a couple months, and then people started like, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it's you gel with who you gel with, and like
Yeah.
yeah, so it eventually happened. But imagine now where you have like all these millions. I can't
Yeah.
imagine now for like D1 players who have to go through that type of process. The only thing like I kind of like would probably say is a disadvantage is that the NIL deal kind of like well deals are more profitable for the starters or the
Oh
big
yeah.
names. But for the guys who are probably on the B team or they do have that potential, they probably won't get as much limelight on them.
Yeah.
So I would probably say like instead of having these players like stay back in college for like 2, 3 more years and they're in their 20s, I would have probably tried like to invest in a second league, like a G League or something, and maybe like
Yeah.
pour more money into that for them to like get exposure, maybe think about playing abroad, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think like pouring all this money into like NILs and like into school is making players want to stay in school longer and be in that environment longer, which
Right.
is it could be an advantage, but a disadvantage as well, because at some point you're gonna have to leave school. It's still school. You're still
Yeah.
getting babied in a sense. And there's nothing to say like this is gonna be the same type of treatment when you leave school. I
Yeah.
feel like the facilities, all the limelight, all the action stuff, like all the big responsibility that you need,
Yeah.
you're kind of like hindering yourself from growing in that area.
Yeah. So it's just a fascinating landscape that's going on. And actually one of the great NIL stories I think that's going on right now. And I want to credit, what I don't know, I don't know what to say. It's just interesting, but I don't think there's any wrong in it. The starting quarterback for the University of Texas is a fantastic quarterback. His name's Quint Ewers. And,
Mm,
he's one of those guys that like, if I recall correctly, Texas always has these guys that like, won 4 state championships. Their high school team went, 46-0 when he played for them or whatever. And I know I'm thinking about Colt McCoy back in the day. I'm dating myself, but he's like mixed Texas football, and the kid is fantastic. He has unfortunately been injured a little bit over the last season or two, but in fairness, I think anyone would have been injured by the hit he took and all that sort of stuff. But he actually makes less NIL money than his backup, which is from the famed quarterback family, the Manning, Arch Manning is and such. And the kid can evidently had a great spring practice and all that sort of stuff. But you talk about these little nuances with NIL. Arch Manning. I mean, I'm sure. First of all, University of Texas and the boosters are paying him a tremendous amount of money to stay as the backup because he will be the heir apparent to Mr. Ewers when Mr. Ewers moves on probably this season after this season. But he could have gone probably any SEC school would have given him probably like $5 million, maybe if not more to go. But he's staying in Texas. Maybe they just offered him the most money. I don't know what it is, but from my perspective, from being in the branding world, then the question sort of starts becoming is okay. So we've basically got these. You're getting NIL money, the university's paying you and such. At this juncture, you're a professional athlete. One way,
mhm.
any way you slice this. And so do you need to start protecting and looking out for your name, image, and likeness? Like we sort of talked about coming all the way back to Ed O'Bannon. Because we all know like Michael Jordan has multiple trademarks, multiple trademarks registered. And these kids are now making money. And this isn't just a pander for what we do here. It's really just providing these kids with advice. So the question would be, and I'll pose it back to Jacob. The question would be is like, at what point should these kids, if you're like a five-star, quarterback coming out of high school, you're we'll go back to the Mr. Texas example that I just saw. You're a 5-star, you're going to Alabama or Texas or Oklahoma or Georgia, one of the premiers right now, or sorry, Ohio State or Michigan, you're going to one of these premier programs. Do you think you should start thinking about like even in high school now, or definitely I don't know. What do you think? When do you start protecting your name, image, and likeness, like your brand? Like when do you start personally branding? What do you guys think?
Well, when you first start using it, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah,
As we preach.
Such a trademark answer.
Yep, right there.
you know,
I would say I mean, it's hard to say because we preach the same thing to our customers, which is the best time to do it is before you start getting popular, right? So I'd say maybe the same question, which would be is if you see some traction, with whatever you're doing, I would say probably as soon as that starts kicking up, I'd say that would be the point.
yeah,
Mm.
you know,
Uh, Depends on the traction. It could just be like a bunch of schools is reaching out to you. You're not necessarily getting like Adidas or Nike pulling up and saying like, "Hey, you want to be in like our ad?" I feel like it depends on the magnitude or how impactful you are as a player
yeah.
to have that kind of sense of okay, this could probably go somewhere. So let me start putting stuff in place.
Yeah, I mean, I know just by the history of our company, I mean, I know that just thinking about players that we've helped out when they've been in college. Yeah, I remember a long time ago, guy by the name of running back for Dallas Cowboys, and prior to that, Ohio State University, pardon me, the Ohio State University, a guy named Zeke Elliott, um, came to us or somebody on his behalf and registered the trademark. I think it was Half Shirt Mafia or something like that. Because I think he brought them to a national championship. I think he was with the team with Jim Tressel. I thought maybe I'm wrong, but anyways, he got famous because he always tucked his shirt up under because he running back shredded abs, and so he said it was half shirt mafia, I think is what he trademarked. But before that, even the legendary Evander Holyfield, his son was a very good running back for the University of Georgia. And he trademarked, Evander was known as the real deal. And then his son, he trademarked, the new deal, for it. Because and such. So, from my perspective, just thinking at that, I mean, we all know that so Michael Jordan arguably would never have had to trademark his name because everyone knows, Michael Jordan, famous, et cetera, et cetera. And he could probably trademark it at any time, provided there's not another Michael Jordan out there. And I guess that's part of the issue, which is there going to be another Michael Jordan out there that, think about it. We got Michael B. Jordan, the actor. And what happens if he decided, well, okay, here you go. There's a perfect example. Michael Jordan wants to protect his name as an athlete in reference to your line of shoes. And now that Michael Jordan, the former athlete, has it for the shoes, will Michael B. Jordan ever be able to trademark the term, for let's say Michael B. Jordan decides, hey, I'm going to come up with a line of shoes. Could he ever do it? And the answer is probably no, because the other Michael Jordan. So now I'm talking myself into there may be a little bit more urgency here than needed, but definitely if you have a phrase, we had another very good quarterback at University of Florida. It didn't stay there very long, but probably one of the more dynamic kids you'll ever see play. His name was Anthony Richardson. And he had a trademark, or it was AR-15. His number was 15. And so it was Anthony Richard 15 because of a gun connotation.
AR-15.
Yeah. Because of a gun connotation and, with mass shootings, I think he eventually moved away from that. But so if you're going to do something like the real deal, if that's what you're known by, or half shirt mafia or AR-15, you want to move forward and get that, probably protected, as soon as possible. But then the more I've talked myself into this, you got Michael Jordan, man. Even if you're Michael Jordan, I mean, now greatest basketball player of all time, without doubt. But he could probably do it with anything. But what happens if there's another Michael Jordan out there? So how many Michael Smiths have you run into in your days, right? Rickson, you ever have Michael Smith on your team out of curiosity?
No Michael Smith.
Really? All right. I was gonna say I probably saw. Or how about Mike Williams?
No Mike Williams. You had a MJ.
Yeah, an MJ. See what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
There you go. And so I think in this day, now that you can actually protect, now that you can get paid for NIL, and the university's going to be paying you, I think that it's incumbent on these players. And again, it's, hey, and I'll just always say, I think we do a fantastic job of it, but this is just for general information to really consider some level of protection. And, it's really not that expensive to do, as you guys are aware. And this sounds like, again, I'm not just trying to, but as you go through this, so if you're not like I was, I went to a smaller college, and I knew from an early stage I wasn't going pro. I wasn't going pro in sports. I was going to go, pro in something else. But if you're actually sitting at if you're a 5-star athlete in high school, or I think we're getting to the stage where you're 5-star, or if you are a starter at Alabama after a couple of years, or Texas and such, I think you really should consider starting to protect your name, image, and likeness, through a trademark route or whatever, to basically lock down those rights. Because again, I think about guys like, MJ, you just said, and Mike Williams is the receiver for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? Anyone?
You
Rickson,
said Mike
Jacob?
Mike Evans, you said?
Oh, Mike Evans. That's what I'm trying to think of. Mike. Thank you. It's Mike Evans. That's what I'm thinking of. But I think it's a relatively it's not a very unique name, right?
Right.
I mean, a Michael Vick, I've never heard of another Michael Vick, but a Mike Evans, I've heard of other Mike Evanses. And I mean, Mike Evans is the whole reason Johnny Manziel won the Heisman Trophy, because he just bailed him out. Johnny just run around. He was a good scrambler, but he just throw the ball up, and Mike Evans went up and caught it for him and such. But if you're like a Mike Evans, if your last name, you've just got sort of Matt Swires, dude, I don't have to worry about that. Yeah, no one even wants that last name. They change it. But I mean, Rickson Hill, I probably would have trademarked that.
You
But if you're like a
trademark
5-star,
Rickson Hill?
yeah, man, I may just do it to sell it to you. But if you're like Caleb Williams, I imagine his team of people coming out, because everyone knew he was going to be a rock star. When he signed with USC, I mean, he had pro skills when he was 17. I mean, fantastic talent. And, but I think that the quote unquote people around you need to start protecting it. So, the challenges and the complexities of the NCAA athlete are, back in the day, it was, just simply, like get to class, go to, and do your athlete thing. Now it's
Yeah,
get to
athlete
class, do your
thing.
athlete thing, NIL money,
Yep.
film your commercials and all that sort of stuff, and then, and we're not even talking about the financial side, which we can talk about some other time. But then now I just think it's incumbent, like early and earlier, like, so you get out there in the NFL or the MLS and you got to protect your name, image, and likeness, with a trademark or something. I think the kids start thinking about that definitely in college and in high school, no less. Personally, I think the university should probably pick up the tab for it, and they should do it for their kids, or the NCAA. They have a right, or IMG, or whoever the hell it is. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely need more like education on that field, like in that area as well, to like make people aware of what it is exactly you're protecting, how it is that you're ensuring that no one else is out there benefiting from your name, especially like major sports with
Yeah,
all with like, and I feel like the more you know as an athlete is the better equipped you are to like figure out how you're gonna balance that and have a life with school and keep up with your grades and perform on the field. You don't want to be a player that gets overwhelmed. As we know, like there's a high suicide rate with
oh
NCAA
yeah,
athletes. And I
yeah,
feel I feel as though just this is just another addition. This is something else as on
yeah,
top of already a difficult thing because it's not easy being an athlete, as you know. It's a lot of up and downs. You're managing school, you're trying to perform, you're trying to like get coaches to like you, you're trying to gel within a certain group, you're trying to gel with players, keep up with grades, like still deal with family. And it's a huge transition for some people as well. A lot of players like they just leave. They
yeah,
just go back home. So yeah, so adding this on a NIL thing, I'm all for it. Definitely worth making some money off your own name because college is expensive, and some college athletes they don't have like the time to actually work. Like
yeah,
it's already a tight schedule, so it doesn't really like make sense, especially in season. So most athletes work off season and that sort of thing. So yeah, because we have a lot of athletes out there, they're paying for college. So I would definitely. I definitely support the NIL deal, and I definitely support like what it does financially for athletes, but I think good guidance is needed in that area.
yeah. I
Awesome.
agree.
Well, I think we should leave it off on that note, guys. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rickson, for joining us today. Gave us and also anybody that's listening a great insight of what it's like in the soccer realm, in college soccer realm specifically. And then Matt, thank you again for talking through everything that we talked about with my questions with the NCAA football and everything. So I'm glad it's coming back. It should be literally out next month. Matt, if you're interested, get an Xbox, get a PlayStation, game it up. Um, but anyways, this has been a great time again, Rickson and Matt. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a great day, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.